Last night, in about the 9 p.m. hour, a New York Times story broke. The headline was Pentagon set up briefing for Musk on potential war with China. Now, notably, this New York Times story had more reporters than sources. There were 5 reporters. There were 2 officials confirming the details of that report, unnamed officials. President Trump denied the report at 11:20 p.m. But what was interesting right now is you heard President Trump not just deny the report, but explain that Elon Musk would never be given access to war plans with China because he's a businessman. Why would he ever do that? He even went so far as to mention a conflict of interest. Elon Musk has business deals in China. Why would I give him this information? Though he did praise Elon Musk broadly in his portfolio. Big news out of this. We will let you in on all of it. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kayleigh McEnany. Here's my co-host Emily Compagno and Harris Faulkner. Also joining us, Lisa Booth, Fox News political analyst, Guy Benson, Fox News contributor, and host of The Guy Benson Show on Fox News Radio. Guy, you and I were speaking. The most interesting part of this to me, and you and I agreed on this, was you didn't have a reporter say to him, hey, Elon Musk has a conflict of interest here. He acknowledged it himself and explained how seriously he takes this information. Let's listen to that moment.
I certainly wouldn't want, Elon has businesses in China, and he would be susceptible perhaps to that. But it was such a fake story. The New York Times is just as fake as CNN and MSDNC. And anybody read that story, people laughed at that story. Who would do such a thing? And the first thing I did is I called Susie and I called Pete. I said, is there any truth to that? And they said, it's ridiculous. No, he's over there to talk about cost. You might want to address that, Pete. But Elon was over there today to address cost. Doge, thing called Doge, which you've heard about.
Guy, they had 5 reporters. They had 2 officials confirming the details for confirming more broadly that Elon would be at the Pentagon.
That was a fierce denial. That was a categorical denial of the story. And my ears perked up as yours did. He was not asked about a conflict of interest. He raised that himself unsolicited. He understood the reason why someone would object to this, and he agreed with it. He said, that's why we're not doing it. So it wasn't just like, oh, fake news, move on. It was fake news for these reasons. We would never allow it specifically because of some of these concerns, and therefore the story is false. We would never even consider something like that. You worked in the press office. You know what a really strenuous denial looks like. That was it.
Yeah, and to get it so quickly at 11:20 p.m. last night, it's like I could see the balloon of the liberal media just pop in the air, just fizzle out as he gave that denial. You know, Harris, he also took on the judge. And I think the way he framed this is something a lot of Americans who just voted in an election in November will understand. Listen, this is about the judge and that plane with Trende Aragua alleged gang members on it.
If ISIS or al-Qaeda foreign terrorists were operating here in the United States, cops would probably be shooting first and asking questions later. And so what is the difference between terrorists, between somebody like an ISIS or an al-Qaeda operative versus a MS-13 or Trende Aragua?
Well, these are people that focus on destroying people in their homes. They're not as international in that sense. They're a group of thugs. They come from Venezuela. They come from the prisons of Venezuela. They're tough people. They're bad people. We don't want them in our country. We can't let a judge say that he wants them. He didn't run for president. He didn't get much more than 80 million votes. And we just can't let that happen. It'd be so bad for our country.
Yeah, you know what was so interesting about that entire section to me, Kayleigh, is that he won on that issue, and he said that today. He said, the American people expect me to be doing this sort of thing because that's what I promised and that's what needs to be done to protect them. And that obviously is his first job as commander-in-chief. So he took the judge on the merits of the case. He didn't make it personal, which it could be because it certainly feels personal from the other direction as he goes after and joins the litany of people going after the president from the left. It wasn't about that. This is what they hired me to do. And I'm going to do what the American public hired me to do with millions and millions and millions of votes. It's on display right now. And Andy Biggs, congressman from Arizona, also on the Judiciary House Committee there, explained to me today that the problem for this judge is that he actually doesn't have a position that gives him a lifetime job. He can be removed if he has bad behavior, if he steps out of line, if it looks like he's trying to thwart a sitting president or whatever it would be deemed to be. I thought that was really interesting. Now, there are some reports that Boasberg may be getting a raise in terms of elevation of position. We'll watch for that today.
Yeah, 167 federal judges, one elected president of the United States, but these judges have an immense amount of power over what the president is doing on a day-to-day basis. Lisa, he also addressed these Tesla attacks that we've seen that are widespread and remarkably consistent in the way that they're performed. Listen to what he said.
I view these people as terrorists just like others. When I looked at those showrooms burning and those cars, not one or two, like 7, 8, 10 burning, exploding all over the place. These are terrorists. Look at what's going on now with these terrorists. These are terrorists, and that's an organized event. You know, take a look at their signs. Take a look. They're all made by the same sign company. A nice, expensive job. Now, these are the people that finance it are, in my opinion, in just as big a trouble as the people that are setting the match and setting the fires. So we'll see. It's under very serious investigation by the FBI and by the Justice Department. These people are terrorists.
It seems like he's indicating there Kash Patel, Pam Bondi may be looking to see if there's any sort of organization around this.
Well, yeah, and they're also making an example out of 3 different individuals, which I think will help to send that message that we are treating this as domestic terrorism. I love these media availabilities and these press conferences. One, it's a little bit like a choose-your-own-adventure novel. You know, do we talk about Ukraine? Do we talk about China? Do we talk about Doge? You know, which issue do we talk about? Because he's doing so much. This is an administration on steroids. You can tell the guy doesn't sleep. And so that's why it's so important for him to do these things, to do these availabilities, to take a beat like he did with the joint session to Congress as well and say, hey, look, this is what I'm doing for you. Here's how I'm delivering. This is why it's important, and to inform the American people. And this is the most transparent president, or at least one of them we've ever had. You look at his first month alone, he took over 1,000 questions from reporters. That's 7 times as much as Joe Biden did during that same period of time. You know, so good for him for being so transparent with the American people and speaking directly to them. It also helps him circumvent the biased media as well.
You know, the motto of my press shop when I was there was offense only. And I'd like to think that that's a phrase that I adopted from the style of my boss. And my boss was President Trump, and he knows how to go on offense better than anyone. I want to play an example of that. A reporter asked him, do you have the authority to deport? And watch how he turns this around about Joe Biden's authority to let in 8 million illegal immigrants.
Mr. President, do you think you have the authority, the power to round up people, deport them, and then you're under no obligation to a court to show the evidence against them?
Well, that's what the law says, and that's what our country needs, because we were, unfortunately, they allowed millions of people to come into our country, totally unvetted, totally unchecked. So you ought to ask, did he have the authority to allow millions of people? Did Biden have the authority to do something that's unthinkable? Have open borders where millions of people poured into our country, totally unvetted and totally unchecked, just as you would say. And many of those people were criminals. Many of them were from jails and prisons and mental institutions and gang members and drug dealers and very dangerous people. Many were murderers. When you ask me if we have the authority, did Biden have the authority to allow millions of people to come into our country? Many of these people hardened criminals at the top of the line who have caused tremendous damage in our country.
It would seem Biden's authority would be in contravention of the Immigration and Nationality Act, but who cares about details? Emily, this all began, and you were very passionate about this, with a new fighter jet and the F-47. You wanted to expound upon it.
Yeah, I'm so excited by this. And keep in mind that just 3 days ago, China reportedly took a second test flight of their 6th-generation fighter jet. Now, allegedly, that's called the J-36. They've been operating a 5th generation so far. It's the J-20, if I remember correctly. That's radar evading. And these photos of this new 6th-generation fighter jet on their part, it sort of looks like a mix between the B-2 bomber and the F-117A, which is our stealth fighter. So basically like a black triangle, like a bat. And so that's something that when you couple with the Secretary of Defense's remarks today, where he said, look, under the prior administration, this program was paused, was potentially going to be canceled. And now we are reminding the world that our air power is superior, and we are investing in a maintenance of that superiority. And that with that air power, the president talked about how the availability of this new F-47 on our part. Obviously, a lot of it's classified, but he said greater payload, greater maneuverability, greater stealth, greater speeds. It's going to hold a bunch of drones. Tip of the iceberg, and especially that photo was quite exciting. But I just note that as we come off of the prior administration, remember the spy balloons that floated across our country? Remember how we experienced sort of an alarming uptick and surge of physical violations by the Chinese in terms of our military institutions and installations, not to mention the intellectual property theft that also had to do with air technology. So I, as an American and as a lover of the Air Force and fighter jets, I'm just so heartened by the F-47, and I can't wait to see it unveiled. And final quick point, just last November, China unveiled their answer to our F-22 and the F-35. So they're right on our heels. And this is an example. This is an arena where the president and the Secretary of Defense's commitment to lethality and superiority on our part is really going to shine through.
Yeah, exciting days for the U.S. military. All right. Well, House Republicans launching an investigation into rising swatting attacks on conservatives. Now, swatting is when someone tries to send armed police to another person's house under false pretenses. The act can put the lives of the victims and the responding officers in danger, as it did in the case of talk radio host Joe Pagliaro, who was recently woken up in the middle of the night by more than half a dozen armed officers.
But this guy, wherever he happened to be, was trying to get police to break down the door and possibly either kill me or scare us enough to where I would shut my mouth and not do what I do on the radio every day. It was one of those, I'm sure you've had this, where your heart flops out of your chest. I've never had it that hard before, but thankfully, the police were there. They understood the situation. They got that it was a swatting, and we're all safe. I think that it's A, either get me dead, B, have me kill a cop as I'm doing it, C, have the cop be the one who kills me. Now, we're all bad guys. And then D, people like you shut up and stop talking about what you talk about. They didn't accomplish what they wanted to, but I hope there will be accountability.
DHS Secretary Kristi Noem vows to hunt the cowards behind those calls. Quote, under President Trump's leadership, we will not sit idly by as conservative news media and their families are being targeted by false swatting. DHS has the ability to trace phone numbers and track location information, and we will use it to hunt these cowards down. This is an attack, she says, on our law enforcement and innocent families, and we will prosecute it as such. Guy, a frightening turn of events that hopefully does not begin a pattern.
Using this as a weapon is extremely dangerous, and it's evil, and it should be charged basically at the level of a home invasion, I think, right? I believe that when someone falsely accuses someone else of, let's say, sexual assault, if that is proven to be a hoax and false, there should be charges commensurate to what the lie initially was. And in this case, you're putting a lot of people's lives in danger. You are sending armed police, heavily armed police, to the house, believing falsely, because of the lie, that there's some sort of life-threatening moment or incident unfolding in that house or at that property. So they are armed to the teeth, understandably, and the people sitting at home are completely unaware of any of this. They're just innocently trying to go about their lives, even sleeping in bed at night, and to have a door knocked down or pounding it is a terrifying thing, and those who are responsible for swatting others should face extremely serious consequences, because this type of thing will get people killed.
Yeah, Lisa, there's a parallel, in my opinion, between this scenario and the vandalism at the Tesla dealerships and with cars. Point being, while the defenders of such say, oh, it's innocuous, it's no big deal, the propensity for massive loss of life, the frightening volatility of these scenarios is what makes it so explosive and so terrifying. They need to be condemned and prosecuted immediately.
Well, and, how do you think the left would react if that happened? I mean, sadly, I think there'd be a lot of people cheering. I mean, we saw that on The Daily Show recently as people were applauding what's happening with the Teslas and the fire bombings as well. I mean, look, the whole intention of they want to get someone killed. That's why you SWAT. The hope is that the police officer accidentally kills the individual who's being targeted. They want someone to be killed. We've seen people get killed in the past. One gentleman comes to mind, Andrew Finch. I think Congress should make this a distinct federal crime. I believe it can be considered under interstate threats, but to make it a distinct federal crime, because the whole purpose is to get someone killed. And if this continues, that will likely happen.
Yeah,
agree
and by
with that.
using the phones that can be also
Exactly.
from the interstate.
Well,
Exactly.
You're more equipped to answer that one. I'll kick that over to you.
And Kaylee, as the radio host was talking about it, Mr. Joe, he outlined exactly what I could have been killed. They could have been killed. The danger is so profound and frightening.
It's very scary. Someone could definitely get killed. This is a new method, but this method or practice of intimidation and harassment is old. I follow a lot of these conservative influencers. I've been seeing them say, my house is swatted. One said it was swatted for the 4th time. These influencers are very powerful. They are very effective. They have huge followings. Many of them are probably a reason lots of young people flock to the president. So people know that. And they target people who are effective in the Trump orbit. They did this to me. My old house in Florida was not swatted, but when they were burning down buildings in the Tampa area and a gas station, they posted the address of my house, picture of my house, and my house was next. I had police show up at my door. I had a new baby, and they said, they're threatening to burn down your house. We need to protect you. They called both of my high schools, the boys' school, the girls' school. They called my dad's business. They called my uncle's business. They called my sister's track coach. They called my mother, said that I was the C word, and said that I hope I get cancer. These are the things people sign up for when they sign up to be an effective voice in the Trump orbit, either in government or as a conservative influencer who I would argue has outsized influence more so than many actual government officials. Stay strong, guys. You're doing a great job. You're effective. And the fact that you're being targeted is an example of why you're so effective.
I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you had to go through all. That's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Haley.
People need to know. Yeah.
So much. I'm glad you shared that. I do see a similarity with what's going on with Elon Musk and the Teslas. And I said this yesterday and took a lot of heat for saying it, but I totally believe it, especially after what you just said, how these should be separate federal crimes. They're not vandals. They're domestic terrorists.
Yes.
They're blowing up dealerships. There might be a night guard on that. They like to do these things after hours so you see the flames better, I would guess. This is about ideology. And if you look at it, and Congressman Biggs told me this last hour, if you look at it, it is the definition of domestic terrorism. And so what does that mean? If someone gets hurt in the process of this, that ratchets up that crime even further. We can't tolerate this. Like, this is not okay. There is now, and you can look this up today, our Seattle affiliate, Fox 13, has video of a woman whose Tesla she was driving. It got spun off the road. A guy ran her off the road, got out. He had on full fatigues. You couldn't see anything except for his eyes. And he threatened her. He said, you got to get rid of this car now. And he went on. Well, of course, the cameras are rolling from all over the Tesla. So we see this whole thing play out. I mean, when I tell you that this is terrorism, she said, thank God she didn't have anybody young with her. What if she'd had children with her? I mean, I had then another Al Motor, a Democrat, on my last hour on the Faulkner Focus, who said he fears for his life. He wanted to buy a Tesla, but out of fear, he wouldn't. A Democrat. This is terrorizing us as citizens, and it's got to stop.
Although they're making me want to buy a Tesla. I've never wanted to buy it. Now
You and Dean
Now
Cain.
I want to buy one out of spite. Just to be
Dean
like,
Cain, too. Superman.
Stick it to him. Yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.